Have you ever felt just, well, stuck in your own head? Maybe replaying conversations over and over, or doubting every little decision, imagining all the things that could possibly go wrong.
It's such a common feeling, isn't it? That sense of being trapped.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today.
Yeah.
Overthinking. Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah, today we're really going to unpack it, what it actually is, why we do it, how it shows up in life.
And most importantly, how you can start to steer your thoughts towards, well, more clarity, more confidence, maybe just a bit more calm.
It's a journey for sure.
Okay, so to really get a handle on this, think about your brain like a computer. We've all been there with too many tabs open, right? Everything just slows down.
Totally. Grinds to a halt almost. That's a great analogy for what overthinking does. It just clogs up the system.
And it's crucial to say this isn't the same as like deep thinking or careful planning. Those things help you figure stuff out.
Right. Deep thinking moves you forward. Overthinking, well, it keeps you stuck. It's like digging yourself deeper into a rabbit hole, getting more lost instead of finding answers.
Yeah, exactly. Just going round and round.
But here's the really important thing to grasp, I think. Overthinking. It's not like a personality trait you're stuck with forever.
Oh, that's good news.
It really is. It's a mental pattern. And patterns, they can actually be changed.
Okay, so if you're listening and you've lost sleep because your mind won't shut off, or you put off big decisions getting caught in what-ifs.
You're definitely not alone, and your brain isn't broken. It might just be running an old, unhelpful program.
And hopefully today, we can help you start rewriting that program.
That's the goal.
So let's get into it. What exactly is overthinking? How would you define that pattern?
Well, at its heart, it's basically thinking too much, but in a way that's just not helpful, Instead of analyzing to solve a problem.
You just analyze.
Yeah.
Endlessly.
Exactly. You get stuck in the analysis itself. It generates anxiety, maybe inaction. It's when you dig so deep, you actually start creating problems that weren't even there, or you blow small things way out of proportion.
Okay, so the brain kind of gets stuck on repeat, sometimes even making things up to worry about. Why? Why do we fall into that trap? What are the roots of it?
Good question. There are definitely some common culprits. One big one is just plain fear of failure.
Ah, okay. Like being scared of making the wrong move.
Precisely. That fear can totally paralyze you, so you just keep thinking about all the possibilities instead of actually, choosing one and moving forward.
That sounds familiar.
And tied very closely to that is perfectionism, that need for everything to be flawless.
Right, trying to avoid any mistake.
Yeah. So you analyze every tiny detail, hoping to catch any potential error, but the irony is that often stops you from doing anything at all. You get stuck thinking, not doing.
So the pursuit of perfection leads to nothing.
Often, yeah. Then there are past experiences. If something hurt you before, your brain's trying to protect you, right?
Makes sense.
So it might keep replaying those painful memories, trying to spot warning signs, trying to prevent it from happening again, which leads to overanalyzing the present.
Okay. And you mentioned one more.
Yes, it's about lack of control. When life feels really unpredictable or chaotic, overthinking can give you this illusion that you're doing something productive.
An illusion. How so?
Because you feel like you're tackling the problem by thinking about it so hard, but really you're just spinning your wheels mentally. It gives a false sense of control when things feel out of control.
Wow. Okay, so words like perfectionism, illusion, exaggerate, they really capture different facets of this.
They do. They help us see the nuances.
It really sounds like this mental loop you mentioned, like that washing machine analogy, just going round and round, turning tiny worries into huge anxieties. I mean, who hasn't spent way too long analyzing a text message they sent?
Or planning a simple weekend trip like it's a military operation. It's that loop exactly. Thinking and thinking, but never reaching a satisfying conclusion or action.
And you said the brain uses it to kind of put off doing things.
Yeah, sometimes thinking becomes a deferral tactic, especially when we're afraid. It feels like you're preparing, but often you're just avoiding the leap.
Okay, so these loops, they often get started by something specific,
Yeah.
right? Like, what are the common things that trigger this whole spiral? The hidden buttons it pushes.
Yeah, exactly. Triggers. Sometimes they're obvious, but often they're these subtle, almost invisible forces pulling us into that overthinking mode. We found about 5 really common ones.
5. Okay, let's hear.
All right. First up, uncertainty. Our minds just don't really like not knowing. It's uncomfortable.
Right, we want answers.
We do.
Yeah.
So when things are uncertain, the mind tries to fill the gap by predicting every single possible outcome. You get flooded with, what if it goes wrong? What if this happens? What if that happens? Endlessly. But, life is uncertain. Trying to nail down every variable is just exhausting and impossible, really.
Yeah, trying to control the uncontrollable.
Yeah.
Okay, what's number 2?
That leads right into the second one. Low self-confidence. If you tend to doubt yourself.
Like, did I say the right thing? Or should I have handled that differently?
Exactly that. Overthinking becomes this constant inner critic. It almost feels like a shield. If you think through every angle, maybe you won't mess up. But really, it just stops you from fully living.
A shield that keeps you trapped inside. Got it. Number 3.
Number 3 is the fear of judgment. We're social animals, right? We want to belong, to be accepted.
Definitely.
So this fear can trigger that mental replay you mentioned earlier, going over conversations again and again, worrying about how people saw you, what they thought.
Oh, yeah. The mental re-edit. Hours later.
Totally. It creates this huge pressure, this constant self-monitoring. It's draining.
Incredibly draining. Okay. Number 4.
Perfectionism, which we touched on, it's such a powerful trigger. That desire for everything to be just so.
So the fear of making a mistake means you obsess.
You obsess over details, yeah. Often to the point where you just don't act. Like wanting to post something online, but you edit, re-edit, second guess. And maybe it never even goes up because the thought process takes over.
Been there. Definitely been there.
Yeah.
Okay. And the last one, number 5.
The 5th one is past trauma or failure. Painful memories can act like these big flashing red flags in our minds.
How's...
Well, say you had a really bad breakup. You might overanalyze every tiny interaction in your next relationship, looking for warning signs. Or if you failed at a work project, you might scrutinize every single decision on the next one to an extreme degree.
So the brain is trying to prevent repeat pain, but it goes overboard with the analysis.
Exactly. It overcompensates, trying desperately to avoid history repeating itself.
Wow. Okay, those 5 triggers, uncertainty, low confidence, fear of judgment, perfectionism, and past trauma, that covers a lot of ground. So how can someone listening start to figure out their specific triggers?
Well, the absolute first step is just awareness. You have to start observing your own mind, almost like a curious scientist.
Not judging, just noticing.
Precisely. Notice when the anxiety spikes or when those repetitive thoughts kick in. A really powerful thing you can do is simply write down your thoughts when you catch yourself overthinking.
Just get them out on paper.
Yeah, don't filter, don't judge, just scribble it down. Maybe something like, okay, overthinking started after that meeting. My thought was, they probably think my idea was stupid. Feeling anxious, embarrassed.
Okay, so you track the thought and the feeling.
And maybe what happened right before. By doing this over time, you start seeing patterns. You illuminate your personal triggers. And truly, that awareness is the first massive step towards making a change.
Okay, that makes sense. Awareness first. Now, this leads us to something really critical, I think, figuring out the line between just thinking productively and getting lost in that unhelpful overthinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
This distinction is absolutely key. Thinking is amazing, right? It's our superpower. Lets us solve problems, create, learn.
Well, when does it tip over into something that just causes distress? Where's that line?
It's a vital line to learn to recognize.
Yeah.
We can look at maybe 5 clear differences. First, thinking solves. Overthinking stalls.
Okay, solves versus stalls. Explain that a bit more.
Productive thinking is usually geared towards finding a solution or making a decision. It asks, okay, how can I handle this? Overthinking, on the other hand, just circles the problem. It keeps asking, what if? Without actually moving towards an answer or an action.
Right. One moves forward, the other just spins. Got it.
Yeah.
What's the second difference?
Second, thinking uses logic. Overthinking uses emotion. When you're thinking clearly, you're generally engaging your reason, looking at facts.
Okay.
Overthinking, that's often fueled by emotions, fear, guilt, anxiety, insecurity.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Logic says, okay, I studied for this test. I prepared. I'll do my best. Overthinking shouts, what if I forget everything? What if I completely fail? What if everyone else does better? See the difference? One is based on reason, the other on fear.
Yeah, that's crystal clear. Okay, third difference.
Third, thinking leads to decisions. Overthinking leads to hesitation. The whole point of thinking through something is usually to guide us towards an action or a choice.
Right, to do something.
Exactly. But overthinking often causes what we call mental paralysis. You get stuck, frozen, afraid to make the wrong move.
That feeling of being mentally frozen is so real. Like wanting to speak English in class thinking might say, okay, I'll try a sentence, even if it's not perfect.
Right. Productive thought. Whereas overthinking says, oh no, what if I sound silly? What if people laugh? Maybe I should just wait. Maybe next time. It leads to inaction. Paralysis.
Okay. So solves versus stalls, logic versus emotion, decisions versus hesitation. What's number 4?
Fourth, thinking is clear. Overthinking is cloudy. When you think productively, things tend to become clearer. You gain understanding, maybe see a path forward.
Like lifting a fog.
Exactly. Overthinking does the opposite. It often makes things more confusing. It muddies the waters, leaves you feeling foggy, and maybe even more uncertain than when you started. We even say, my mind is foggy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay, and the 5th difference.
Finally, number 5. Thinking accepts risk. Overthinking avoids it. Look, pretty much every decision in life has some element of risk, big or small.
True. Nothing's 100% certain.
Exactly. And healthy thinking acknowledges that. It weighs the risks rationally and allows you to move forward anyway. Overthinking, though, tries desperately to eliminate all risk. It demands 100% certainty before acting, which, as you said, is impossible.
So it disguises fear as being careful.
Perfectly put. It feels like caution or responsibility, but underneath, it's often fear holding you back, waiting for a guarantee that never comes.
Wow, those 5 distinctions are incredibly helpful. So when you feel your mind spinning, maybe ask yourself those questions.
Exactly. Pause and ask. Am I actually finding solutions here or just asking more worried questions? Am I using logic or is fear running the show? Is this helping me move towards a decision, or am I just stuck? Is my mind getting clearer or foggier? Am I accepting reasonable risk or demanding impossible certainty?
Those questions can really help you see which side of the line you're on.
Absolutely. It's about learning to guide your thoughts, steering them in a direction that actually serves you instead of letting them just run rampant.
And it's important to remember, this isn't just some battle happening inside your head, right? Overthinking actually leaks out.
Yeah.
It affects your daily life in real ways.
Oh, absolutely. It's pervasive. It influences how you work, how you talk to people, how you make choices, even how you sleep, often silently, without you fully connecting the dots.
So people might feel run down or anxious, but not realize their brain's been working overtime on the wrong things.
Precisely. It's like running a marathon mentally, but without going anywhere useful. Let's break down 5 major areas where it really takes a toll. First, decision-making becomes a struggle.
Even small decisions.
Especially small decisions sometimes. What to eat, what to wear, which route to take, they can feel huge. You might make endless pro-con lists, Constantly ask friends for advice. Change your mind back and forth.
Creating that loop of doubt you mentioned.
Exactly. The fear of making the wrong choice becomes bigger than the choice itself. Think about staring at a restaurant menu for ages, right? So caught up in, what if I don't like it? What if the other thing is better? That the actual enjoyment just evaporates.
I know that feeling. It totally drains the fun out of simple things. Okay, what's the second area?
Second, conversations replay in your mind. After you talk to someone, do you find yourself going over it again and again?
Analyzing every word, worrying how you came across, if you sounded okay.
Yes. That constant self-analysis, worrying if you were understood, if you seemed foolish. It makes social interactions feel really high stakes and unsafe. You're not just having a conversation. You feel like you're constantly performing and then judging that performance afterwards. People say, I keep playing that conversation over in my head.
Yeah, it's exhausting. Okay, third impact.
Third, sleep gets disturbed. This is a huge one. An overactive mind is the enemy of rest.
Lying awake, mind racing.
Yep. Revisiting things from the day, worrying about tomorrow's to-do list, sometimes even having imaginary arguments in your head. Your body is desperate for sleep, but the mind just won't switch off.
And that creates a vicious cycle, right?
Yeah.
Bad sleep leads to more anxiety.
Which leads to more overthinking, which leads to worse sleep. It feeds itself. Quick tip here. Sometimes just jotting down whatever's buzzing around in your head onto a notepad before bed can help. Getting it out can quiet things down a bit.
Good practical tip.
Okay.
Number 4. This sounds like a big one, too.
It is. Fourth, you miss the present moment. Overthinking is almost always about the past or the future, right? Regretting something, worrying about something.
So it pulls your attention away from right now.
Completely. You might be physically there, walking in nature, eating a meal, talking with a friend, but mentally, you're checked out. You're replaying that argument from yesterday or rehearsing what you'll say tomorrow. Life is happening now, but overthinking keeps you mentally absent.
So you're there, but not really there.
Exactly. Mindfulness practices, even just focusing on your breath for a minute, can really help pull you back to the present.
Okay. And the 5th major impact.
Fifth, you delay opportunities. This is where overthinking gets sneaky, disguising itself as being careful or responsible.
How does that work?
You wait, you plan endlessly, you keep tweaking things, telling yourself, I'm just not quite ready yet. You're waiting for the perfect moment or until you feel 100% certain.
But perfect rarely comes.
It rarely does. So by the time you finally feel ready, if you ever do, the opportunity might have passed you by. Think about applying for that dream job or starting that YouTube channel you talked about or asking someone out. Overthinking creates 1,000 what if it goes wrong scenarios, and the result is often inaction and later regret.
Oof, that one hits home. So just to recap those signs, taking ages to decide things, constantly replaying conversations, sleep problems, feeling disconnected from the now, and putting off taking action. These are all signals.
Big signals that overthinking is having a real impact on your daily life. But remember, and this is crucial, these are habits. They aren't flaws in your personality.
Habits can be changed.
Habits can absolutely be changed. Recognizing the impact is the first step towards wanting to build new, healthier habits, creating that space between you and the chatter.
Okay, this is great. We've really unpacked the what's and the why and the how it affects us. Now let's get to the good stuff, the tools. What can people actually do in the moment to calm that racing mind?
Yes. Let's shift to actionable strategies. And the goal here isn't to erase your thoughts or achieve some perfectly blank mind. That's not realistic.
Right. It's more about guiding them, creating mental space.
Exactly. Guiding them, managing them. Okay, 5 practical techniques you can try almost immediately. First, name your thoughts.
Name them, give them labels.
Precisely. When a difficult thought pops up, a worry, a judgment, a criticism, just mentally label it. That's a worry thought, or, okay, self-criticism just showed up, or that's planning mind.
What does that do?
It creates distance instantly. You shift from being inside the thought, totally consumed by it, to being the observer of the thought. It's subtle, but incredibly powerful. Instead of I'm going to fail, it becomes I'm noticing the thought I'm going to fail. Big difference.
That little bit of distance sounds like it could change everything.
I think.
Okay, technique number 2.
Second, set a worry timer. This sounds a bit strange at first, maybe even counterintuitive.
A timer for worrying.
Yeah. Dedicate a specific short period each day, maybe 10-15 minutes, where you actively allow yourself to worry. Sit down, write out all the worries buzzing around, let them have their moment.
And then what?
When the timer goes off, you stop. You consciously postpone any further worrying until the next scheduled worry time. It sounds odd, but it helps create a boundary. It puts the worries in a container rather than letting them bleed into your entire day.
Containing the storm, like you said earlier. Okay, I can see how that might work. Third technique.
Third, use the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method. This is fantastic for when your mind is really spinning and you feel disconnected. It pulls you right back into your body in the present moment.
How does it work? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Super simple. You just consciously notice 5 things you can see around you. Then 4 things you can physically touch. Then 3 things you can hear. Then 2 things you can smell. And finally, 1 thing you can taste. Or just notice the taste in your mouth.
Gauging all the senses.
Exactly. It forces your attention away from the internal mental chaos and onto your external sensory experience. It anchors you right here, right now. Very effective for panic or anxiety spirals.
Okay, that's a really concrete one. Number 4.
Fourth, ask, what's the worst that could realistically happen? Overthinking often feeds on vague, catastrophic fears.
Things blown way out of proportion.
Totally. So this technique involves looking that fear directly in the eye. Ask yourself, okay, what is the absolute worst case scenario here, realistically, and then crucially, and if that happened, how would I cope? What would I do?
So you face it head on.
You do. And what you often find is that A, the worst case is usually not as catastrophic as your anxiety was painting it, and B, even if it did happen, you likely could handle it. You're more resilient than you think. It replaces wild imagination with more realistic thinking.
Shrinking the fear down to size. I like that.
Okay.
Okay, 5th and final immediate tool.
Fifth, practice mental redirecting. When you notice you're stuck in an overthinking loop, don't try to wrestle the thought into submission. That often just makes it stronger, right? Like trying not to think of a pink elephant.
Right, impossible.
Instead, gently redirect your focus. Shift your attention deliberately to something else. Maybe get up and walk around, do a simple physical task like washing dishes or organizing a drawer, listen to music, or repeat a simple calming phrase to yourself like, right now, in this moment, I'm okay.
So it's not fighting the thought, but shifting attention.
Exactly. Think of overthinking like being stuck in a mental tunnel. Redirecting is like gently finding an exit ramp, guiding your brain onto a different, more peaceful road.
Okay, great. So just to quickly recap those 5 tools for immediate relief. 1, name your thoughts to get distance. 2, set a worry timer to contain the worry. 3, use 5-4-3-2-1 grounding to get present. 4, ask what's the worst case to face fears realistically. 5, practice mental redirection to shift focus gently.
Exactly. And like I said, these aren't magic wands. They take practice. But each time you use one, you're building that muscle of mental control moment by moment. Over time, you really will feel your mind get quieter.
That's really encouraging. Now, using these tools is great for in-the-moment relief, but for lasting change, you mentioned building new habits, right? Replacing that automatic overthinking loop.
Absolutely. Lasting change comes from consistently practicing new ways of thinking until they become the new default. Overthinking is often an ingrained habit. We need to intentionally build a new habit of clearer, more constructive thinking.
Okay, so how do we build that new habit? What are the strategies for the long haul?
Let's talk about 5 key habits. First, start with small, clear decisions. Overthinking often gets worse with complex, high-stakes choices. So Practice building your decision muscle on small, everyday things.
Like what kind of things?
Choose your breakfast quickly. Pick an outfit without agonizing. Decide on a movie without endless scrolling. Set a tiny task like answering one email and just do it right away. Maybe even set a 1-minute timer for small choices.
Ah, so you build confidence by proving to yourself that quick decisions are okay.
Exactly. Your brain learns, hey, I made a quick choice and the world didn't end. It builds momentum and reduces the fear around decision-making over time.
Makes sense. Start small. What's the second habit?
Second, create a thinking routine. If your thoughts feel chaotic, bringing some structure can really help. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Like a schedule for your thoughts.
Sort of. Maybe a simple structure like morning check-in. What's my main intention or focus for today? Midday check-in. Am I actually focusing on what matters, or am I lost in worry? Evening reflection. What went well today? What did I learn?
So it guides your thinking towards purpose.
Precisely. It builds directed thinking, consciously pointing your mind where you want it to go, rather than letting it just drift into those familiar worry loops.
Okay. Structured thinking. Habit number 3.
Third, surround yourself with clear thinkers. This is huge. We absorb the thought patterns of the people we spend time with.
Really like osmosis.
Kind of, yeah. If you're constantly around people who second-guess everything, catastrophize, or focus on problems without solutions, it's really hard not to adopt some of that yourself.
So seek out the opposite.
Yes. Spend time, even if it's just through reading their books, listening to podcasts, or finding mentors online with people who model clear, decisive, constructive thinking. Learn from how they approach challenges. Your environment really does shape your internal landscape.
That's a powerful reminder. Choose your influences wisely. Okay, habit 4.
Fourth, reward action, not perfection. Remember how perfectionism fuels overthinking. We need to flip the script.
How?
By consciously celebrating progress and action, even if it's messy or imperfect. Did you speak up in that meeting, even though your voice shook a little? Awesome. Reward yourself mentally. Did you make that phone call you were dreading? Fantastic. Acknowledge the win. Did you finish that project, even if it wasn't flawless? Great job.
So you train your brain to value overdoing perfectly.
Exactly. Your brain learns through rewards.
Yeah.
When you associate taking action, even imperfect action, with a positive feeling, you reinforce that behavior. You start building a positive feedback loop that encourages more action and less getting stuck in thought.
Love that. Reward the effort, not just the outcome. Okay, final habit number 5.
And fifth, train your self-talk. That running commentary inside your head, it has a massive impact.
The inner critic versus the inner coach.
Yes. Overthinkers often have a very harsh inner critic. To build clear thinking habits, you need to consciously train that voice to be more supportive, more like a helpful coach.
So instead of, you'll probably mess this up.
Maybe try, okay, let's just give this a try and see what happens. Or instead of, that was a stupid thing to say. Maybe I could have phrased that differently. What can I learn for next time?
Shifting from judgment to curiosity and encouragement.
Exactly. Practice using kind, constructive, useful language with yourself. It feels unnatural at first, maybe, but like any skill, it becomes a new, much healthier habit over time.
These 5 habits, small decisions, thinking routine, clear thinkers around you, rewarding action, and training self-talk, they sound like building blocks for real change.
They really are. Think of it like learning anything new, like you said, like learning English, perhaps. You don't become fluent overnight.
Right. It takes practice.
Yeah.
Consistent practice.
You start with basics, you practice regularly, you make mistakes, you learn, and slowly, gradually, it becomes more natural. It's the same with building clear thinking habits. With consistent effort, that old overthinking pattern really will start to lose its power.
And you start to feel that peace and clarity instead.
That's the transformation we're aiming for. It's entirely possible.
This has been incredibly insightful. As we start to wrap up this deep dive, if there's one core message, one really powerful idea you want our listener to hold on to, what would it be?
It would be this. You are not your thoughts.
You are not your thoughts. Say a bit more about that. It sounds simple, but profound.
It really is the key to freedom, I think. Your thoughts. They're just part of your experience, like clouds passing through the sky. Some are dark and stormy, some are light and fluffy, some feel helpful, some feel painful.
But they're just clouds passing through.
Exactly. They aren't the sky itself. They aren't you. Overthinking gets its power when we grab onto every thought, especially the negative ones, and believe it completely. We identify with the thought.
I am a failure, instead of I'm having the thought that I'm a failure.
Precisely. A thought is just a sentence, an image, a bit of mental energy. You have the power. And this takes practice to step back, observe it, maybe question it, and ultimately choose not to be defined by it.
Creating that mental space you mentioned.
That essential space, the space between the stimulus, the thought, and your response. In that space lies your freedom, your calm, your ability to choose. So remember, you are the observer of your thoughts, not their prisoner.
You are the thinker, not just the thoughts themselves.
You are the thinker, and you are so much more powerful than you often believe.
Wow. Okay. So today we've really journeyed through this whole landscape of overthinking what it is, those sneaky triggers like uncertainty or perfectionism, how to tell the difference between useful thinking and that stuck-in-a-loop feeling.
And how it shows up day to day, affecting decisions, conversations, sleep.
Right. And then we got into the practical tools, naming thoughts, the worry timer, grounding, facing the worst case, redirecting.
And those longer-term habits. Small decisions, routines, influences, rewarding action, and that crucial self-talk training.
It's a lot, but it feels like a complete toolkit.
It is. And remember, this isn't about achieving perfection. It's a practice. Your brain isn't broken because it overthinks. It's just busy, maybe a little stuck in old patterns.
But it can be trained,
Yeah.
cared for, reset.
Absolutely. Overthinking often comes from a place of caring deeply, of wanting things to be right. You're thoughtful. Now it's about learning to be thoughtful with direction, with intention.
So maybe the next time your mind starts racing down that familiar path, just pause, take a breath.
Yeah. Remind yourself, okay, I recognize this feeling. This is overthinking. I know what to do.
You don't have to fight your mind. Maybe just listen, learn, and lead it gently.
Beautifully put. Listen, learn, and lead.
As you, our listener, reflect on everything we've talked about today, maybe consider, which one of those techniques really clicked for you? What kinds of thoughts tend to get you stuck in that loop most often? And maybe most importantly, what's just one small thing you could try differently, starting today, to gently lead your mind?
Just one small step. That's how change begins. And always remember,
Yes.
you are the thinker, and you are more powerful than you believe.